Indigenous textiles are the skin of tradition. In their ritual use and symbolism, they express identity, represent cosmology, and transmit culture. And 90% of this wisdom is being lost.
The women we work with say, the world tells us our traditions are backwards and primitive and that we need to let them go to develop economically. But why should we have to choose? And how do we maintain our culture and identity and make a living while doing so? Threads of Life exists to work with these weavers towards answers to this question.
Traditional textiles are not just cloth. They articulate a constant remembering and reimagining of tradition and identity. And in this they embody values and history, social connections, and ancestral spirituality for a sacred and living world.
These arts are still strongest in the poorest, most remote regions, where there are few alternative income opportunities. Remoteness also means that there is little access to market. But when women work together in small work groups and cooperatives, they can bridge this isolation.
At Threads of Life, we learn from the communities we work with. We are students of their worldview and make sure our marketing supports rather than harms their culture. We have documented over 250 species of plant used in traditional dye processes. This diversity binds textile tradition to sustainable use of forests and land, and so, by facilitating the local organic farming and harvesting of natural dyes, we build livelihoods based on a responsible relationship with the environment.
But in the end, our work is about connecting people. We bring weavers together so they can help each other maintain their culture and identity and work out how to make a living in a rapidly changing world that is often hostile to their beliefs and practices. And we connect these Indigenous people to the world so that their voices are heard, so that their values are appreciated, and so that you can support their stewardship of our shared heritage.
Om Swastiastu. Welcome to Conversations with Pillars of the Community. My name is Scott Bauer, and I am a founder of Usada Bali here in Ubud, Bali, an Ayurvedic cafe and cultural forum. Today, I'm happy to be here with a friend, someone who's a bit of a model for me in his business, William Ingram. He's one of the founders of Threads of Life. Threads of Life is supports sustainable textiles and women, empowers women across the archipelago in traditional weaving villages by commissioning heirloom textiles that they help to sell and thus support the communities. A very, very interesting business and something that's really, for me, very, very admirable. William, can you tell us a little bit about you coming to Indonesia and how Threads of Life was formulated and what happened? Yeah?
Yeah, well, thank you, Scott. Thank you for inviting me here today. Yeah, well, Threads of Life sort of evolved out of our previous business. We were leading yoga and cultural tours when Bali was still sort of like a fringe destination in the late 80s and early 90s, and people felt like they needed a guide to be able to find their way into and around what was going on here. So we would bring our favorite yoga teachers over, and they would do a class at the beginning and the end of the day, and we would do a cultural program in the middle. Did that for several years, and then with another friend, we started working as escorts and guides on a boat charter that he was doing out to the Eastern Islands, and it was a fabulous itinerary that was set up, that Andre did, and it went around the islands from like started with Komodo and Flores and Lambata and Alor, Timor, Sumba, did the whole circuit over the course of 2 weeks. And when you go ashore, the cultural experience you have is all about textiles.
Right.
And so the interest in seeing that textiles were a window into the traditional culture. You come into a village very quickly, there's so much going on, there's so much that's new. The textiles sort of made the window small enough that you could get some understanding in a short amount of time. We started buying textiles from these communities, because this is one of the interests, is people go there and you want to contribute to the community, and buying the textiles that the weavers are making is a way to do that. So we started buying a few textiles to show at the events where we were promoting the tours, and they sold. And so we started with tours and textiles, and it slowly went to textiles and tours, and then just textiles. My personal background had been out of university. I'd been working in an NGO with, it was about community development. So I saw the opportunity in this. It's like all the things you learn about community development, getting money into the hands of women in a family is like one of the best ways to ensure the welfare of the household.
Correct.
So here, these were textiles traditionally made by women. It was all women's work. And so let's start trying to commission some of this work. The idea really came to fruition with the economic crisis of 1997 and 98, where our tours, we had priced them based on a rupiah to the US dollar rate of about 2,000, and suddenly we were getting 18,000 rupiah to the dollar. So we'd made out like bandits, and the communities we're visiting had like just been washed off the edge of the economic map. And so we felt there was like an obligation to share the windfall.
Yeah.
And so in one community, it's actually in the community where this textile is from. Well, I'll come back to the textile in a moment. So it was on the island of Lambata, in a village called Lamalera, that's famous for its whaling tradition.
Right.
But it's also got a fabulous textile tradition. So we were talking to a group of 12 weavers there, and the idea came up. They were struggling to keep their tradition going. The academic that had done all the academic work on that community had been there a few months before and had urged them not to sell their heirlooms because this is their cultural heritage.
Right.
And they were saying, how do we not sell this? We can't make a living. This is the only asset we have. And so it rose the question, well, can you make more? Could you make these pieces and then sell the reproductions, the new pieces, the continuing culture, rather than selling the heirlooms? And so they said they didn't know, but we said we were willing to take the risk. And so we paid a deposit and we commissioned a textile each from these 12 women. And they were like this piece. So actually they were more complicated than this. So this is hand spun. The natural dyes come from the local environment. The cotton comes from the local environment. One of the beautiful things about this area is that the walk down the coast to the marketplace, the market town, when you go on the morning of the week when that is happening, the women are walking along spinning with a drop spindle as they go. So when they're standing around talking, they're spinning cotton.
Wow.
So they have the drop spindle, it just sort of goes into the top or the back of their sarong. And it's just while you're sitting and talking, it's not as efficient a way as using a spinning wheel.
Right.
But when you're doing it while you're doing everything else, you actually end up producing more thread that way. So, you know, they're sort of like double dipping. I'm walking, I'm spinning. I'm talking, I'm spinning. So it took a year longer than they expected to come up with the textiles that we had commissioned. But we saw that there was a way to keep this going. This particular textile in this community and in neighboring communities is interesting because this is how it comes off of the loom.
Right.
The loom, the traditional loom, weaves a circle of cloth, and it comes up with an area that you can't weave, but they leave it uncut. And a textile like this is used, as in many other places, one of the uses is in the exchange of goods that accompany marriage. The bride's family gives textiles to the groom's family. The groom's family, depending on the community, gives animals, livestock, old antique ivory that's hundreds of years old. There were never elephants on these islands.
No.
Or gold, silver jewelry. But the textiles are invariably what the woman's family gives. And the circle of the textile is the circle of life, the connection of family, connection with the environment. There's a very obvious fertility symbols between the woman giving a tube and the man giving a tusk. Yes, skip over that. Yeah.
Okay, curious. See this light blue, yeah? And this would come from Kunyit. I'm just curious if you know where these dyes come from. Are some of these coral because you're on the seacoast?
No.
Okay.
This is a good question. One of the things we found when we were going into villages and saying we were going to buy natural dye textiles, well, this is what we got into. The personal aesthetic was the interest in natural dyes.
Right.
And we were able to sell natural dye textiles for a higher value than the traditional dye textiles. And it was enough of a high enough value that it allowed us to be able to go to communities and buy them, and to pay the weavers enough money for them to want to do the more difficult natural dye work. So when we're going into a village and people become aware that you're going to pay more money for natural dye cloth, if you don't know what you're doing, suddenly everything is natural dyed.
Yeah.
So it was a buyer beware thing. We had to learn to be natural dyers. So one of the two co-founders, Made Pung, he learned the dye recipes. He studied with these women. He learned how to do the dye work. So then that educated our eye. To a certain degree, you can tell the difference between the synthetic and the natural dye. If we interview the weaver, the dyer, and we know the processes, we can find out whether she knows the processes. If we know how much dye material goes into the cloth, then we can go out and look around the gardens and the landscape and see whether there's enough dye plants around to justify the pile of cloths that's being sold to us. So these sort of like three ways of sort of auditing it. And so, yes, we know that the blue on this is indigo. So Indigofera tinctoria, it's a little leafed indigo plant that grows along the coasts. It likes limestone coastal areas. The red-brown here, is the bark of the root of the morinda tree, which is in Bali called sunti or tiba, Java called pace. It's used often, the fruit is used elsewhere in rujak. But the bark of the root is a dye plant, is a dye source. They also use a mangrove, which is why this is sort of mangrove bark, which gives a tannin, which gives sort of the brown hue to the red. The yellow, it's a good question. I can't remember exactly what they use here. Kunyit, if it was kunyit, it would be white by now. If it was turmeric, it would be white by now. So there are other dye plants that produce a yellow, jackfruit wood. There's another one that's called cockspur thorn, which is also used in Javanese batik, which would be available in the forests there. And the little green is the blue and the yellow. There isn't really a color fast green.
Okay. I'm thinking of my crayons as a kid.
Scribble them one over the other.
So how many of these communities in Indonesia do you support now? It's quite a few islands, yes?
Yeah, we're working on 12 islands,
Uh-huh.
mostly to the east of here,
Right.
and about 50 villages on those islands.
Wow.
It's like 1,000 women.
That's so beautiful.
The way we're able to work with so many is because we're not asking them to do new designs.
Right.
We became students of their aesthetic. We learned what was a great cloth within their tradition. And when we use that as the quality control when we talk back with them, when we're buying pieces. So there's no need to have an overseer. There's no need to have people working in a workshop.
Right.
They know what a good cloth is.
Right.
They can do that at home. And this was an unintended consequence, but it came up with a business model that allows us to be able to visit a weaver or a community maybe 1 or 2 days a year.
Uh-huh.
So that's how we get to see so many people. In some in some areas where they're doing more production, it's more often.
Right.
But in some places, a weaver might only produce 3 or 4 textiles in a whole year.
I recall when you spoke at USADA, when you initially went, they wanted to please you and ask you, what can we make for you?
Yeah, exactly.
And your response was, what did your mother and your grandmother make? Can you make? This is for me. I like lineages. Yeah, I like my Ashtanga lineage. I like Mahayana. I like the Sufi. I'm very interested in ancestral traditions and how the experience of watching the elders create these beautiful textiles they began to learn as children, and it carried that tradition on. Yeah, it's really a beautiful. It's a very satisfying thing for me to understand and hear about. So let's look at this one. What is this one? Where is this?
Well, this is from Sulawesi. I mean, it's used as a scarf or a selendang, selempang over the shoulder. But it does, for our customers, it makes a lovely scarf or a table runner or something like that.
Right.
So, in this area of Sulawesi, this is the remotest area we go.
Okay, where is it?
It's if you imagine Sulawesi sort of like it's orchid shape, you go up from, geez, I'm forgetting, what's the name of the airport there?
Makassar?
Makassar, thank you. You go up from Makassar and around the coast. Toraja, but then you don't go inland.
Right.
You stay on the coast.
Right. The bus goes a little bit that way when you go from. I've been to Toraja on the bus. It goes up the coast and then it goes in. Yeah.
So you keep going up the coast.
Okay.
For about another half day.
All right.
And then you overnight there, and then you get on a local sort of. There used to be old 4-wheel drive Toyotas. Now I think the roads have improved and they can use like the Kijang.
Okay.
Toyota open backs. And it's basically dirt roads for a day. And this, you'll have 15 people with all of their stuff sitting in the back with you. So they're incredibly overloaded. You get as far as you can by car. And then it's a day on trails through the mountains on a motorbike taxi. And then you get to where that won't go. And then it's another day of walking.
What is the name of these? What is this? An indigenous peoples?
Yes, they are the Toraja Karataun.
Okay.
So not the Sadan Toraja, which is at Rantepao. There's the same. It's another sort of subgroup of the Toraja people, the Toraja Karataun. And so these are incredibly remote. Maripung, who I mentioned as our co-founder, the dyer, he's who manages this area. He won't take Jean and me out there. He says, it's too hard, you'll be too much of a problem. So he says, basically for those 3 days on the way in, you don't eat.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
It's hard work. So this is mud dyed.
Mud?
Mud. So it's the ikat, the tie and dye work is done on the yarns.
Right.
And then it's ikat dyed. Then it's mud dyed.
Wow.
So they do over and over again to get this beautiful rich black. Black's really difficult to get.
Yeah, I've seen many.
Yeah. I talked about how remote they are. This makes them very self-reliant.
Yeah.
They're probably our youngest group of weavers.
Uh-huh.
Because they grow up quick up there.
No choice.
Yeah, no choice. And so when Pung was first up there, this was about 2000, the area buyers would go in there at the end of the dry season. And when people really needed money, would force the prices down and down.
Yeah,
Mostly this is the size of textile that mostly we buy up there.
Uh-huh.
This is just half of it. It's a large piece.
This is like a blanket.
It's like a blanket. It's used as an architectural hanging
Okay.
to define the space for a ceremony.
Okay.
But at home, it makes a wonderful blanket, or over the back of a settee, or a wall hanging, or something like that, on a bed. So pushing the price down, it was a vicious spiral.
Yeah.
You push the price down one year, the quality goes down the next.
Right.
The price goes down, the quality goes down.
Right.
So it was a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it took, as it takes in many places, a couple of years, 2 or 3 years of just visiting, for the weavers actually to trust that you're not going to screw them.
Right.
You're going to order this, you're going to pay this higher price, I'm going to do the extra work, and I'm going to get paid for it. So typically, you get sort of early adopters in any situation. So
Right.
someone will take the risk. Everyone else is watching. Even if you don't know they're watching.
They're watching.
They're watching. You turn up, you pay, someone else comes up and says, do you want to order a piece from me? And slowly you can build a group. And we now get to the point, this is one of the few areas where they have, even though they're really remote, they have organized themselves well enough that through COVID now, we've been able to continue to have them send pieces to us.
Wow.
So they send them to us, we do the quality control work. They understand it well enough that they pre-sort it, we've agreed the prices, it can be done. So one of them groups who has a bank account.
Right.
In
Makassar.
in Mamuju.
Mamuju.
We send the money to them and then they distribute it. And when we go next time, we have to make sure we tell everyone, this is how much money we sent.
Yeah.
So it's transparent and accountable.
This is this is a very good way to do it. I'm thinking of what Mohammed did with Grumman Bank, where he lent money to groups of women. Yeah. So they're all watching each other's back, and nobody's going to be the maling. Because your sisters are all informed. Yeah. It's good. It helps that. What the Balinese use, the harmony with the community. Yeah. So this is from the same Toraja area.
Yes.
This is beautiful. Yeah. What are there any symbolism in this, or do you know?
There is it's not. We tend to get specialized in particular areas.
Right.
And as I mentioned, this is Pung's area.
Okay.
If I can find the tag. It'll be readable. But no,
it's okay.
There's some good traditional stories in this, but I'd have to get Pung in here to talk about them.
Another time. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't find it.
Okay, next time. Yeah. This one.
Yes. Now here we're back to Bali now.
Yes.
I'm going to take these off because they're hot.
Yeah, put them over there. Yeah, we'll go through them.
Now we're back to Bali. You've seen this textile everywhere.
Yeah, but the Petulant wear it.
Yeah, it's poleng, black and white. And the Petulant wear it as a hip cloth.
Right.
You'll see it wrapped around a big tree.
Yep.
It's the textile that's used on the Pununggu Karang shrine, the shrine to the guardian of a place. It's strongly associated with Nusa Penida and Ratu Gede Macaling at the Pura Dalam Ped. So it's got some juju behind it.
It's one of my favorite temples.
Yeah. So it's easy to weave.
Yeah.
It's just stripes. You set up black and white on the warp and you weave in black and white on the weft. These traditional textiles, they're called Babali, and that covers sort of a whole group of ceremonial textiles. Everyone, if you go back a couple of generations, the women that are now in their 70s and 80s, and you ask them, oh yeah, we all wove when we were children, when we were young women.
Right.
Our mothers definitely were weavers. Great-grandmothers were definitely weavers. And people wove the cloths that were used in ceremonies.
Right.
Now you see people go out and they buy rolls of white and yellow polyester cloth, and it's used all over the place.
Right.
But before that,
it was weaved.
It was woven at home. And many of the most important textiles were never cut. They came off the loom
right,
like this.
Yeah.
But they weren't this wide or this long. They would be short little cloths. Maybe only about that big, half this size. And different pieces would be, we've just been working on this. We've started realizing that in order to support this, we've got to get the offering makers and the cultural leaders, the sulingi, having sets of these again.
Right.
Because you don't have to throw it away. Once you've got the cloth, you can use it over and over and over again. And where it used to be held by every household, now the offering maker can hold it.
Right.
And bring it to
the
ceremony.
Right.
So there's a small group of textiles, 4 pieces, that would traditionally be used for the touching the ground ceremony, the 3-month.
Right, the baby, 100 days, yeah.
Yeah. So we're making like 10 sets of those, and we're wanting to get them out to Tukang Banten and Sulingi, so that it can again start to be used and start to educate about how these things can be, these textiles can be reincorporated into the ritual practice. So the reason that they are the most, in this case, the most ritually vibrant textiles were the simplest to make is because if every woman was a weaver, not every woman is able to do really complex ikat work like this, like we see in Timor. That was just not happen. So it's actually simple textiles, stripes and checks that form this group of ritual cloths. So traditionally, the black and white textile would have been used only on that shrine, around this tree, to honor the fact that it's got a powerful spirit.
I've seen them.
It wouldn't have been worn by people unless you were considered really capable of understanding the two energies that you were working with here. If you look at the cloth, in terms of its weave, it's white on white, it's black on black, or here it's black on white, and here it's white on black. Half of the cloth is grey.
Right.
And so that's sort of like, I've heard it said, that symbolically is that half the time we don't know which way's up, which way's down, night or day, human consciousness gets confused.
Niskala or sakala.
Yeah. So it's a reminder as much as anything else. So the black and white cloth around the Pununggu Karang, or around the big tree, or around the big rock at the confluence of 2 rivers is a reminder. Be conscious when you're here. So it's an aid to mindfulness in many ways.
I need to wrap my pillow with this color. Speaking of Nusa Penida, the first weaving village I ever was in is in the back. It starts with a T.
Tanglad.
Tanglad. I was there 9 years ago. Yeah, are they still weaving?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you guys been there?
Yes.
Beautiful. Yes. There was like 2 weavers there when I was there, and one of them was 90, and it was fabulous experience. I on the motorbike, I wanted to go and I wanted to see. So
Threads of Life is a for-profit business.
Right.
we also have a non-profit called the Babali Foundation,
Okay.
named after this kind of textile.
Okay.
And one of its first group of funding was from USAID to help revive weaving around Bali. This was in the aftermath of the Kuta bombing, and they were looking for different ways to create livelihood. So we were looking at doing natural dyed, traditional textiles, natural dyes. And so two of the groups that we found where there were weavers that could increase their livelihood by moving over to natural dyes. One group was in Nusa Penida, in Tanglad, and another was in Soraya, East Soraya,
Okay.
like all on the coast road rounds to
Yeah,
Ahmed.
yeah, yeah.
if you
That's
were
a
to go that
beautiful
way.
road. I was just up there.
Yeah. And so we taught the weavers how to make this with natural dyes, how to get the black, and on Nusa Penida for the chupuk, which is the weft ikat,
Right.
beautiful long cloth,
Right.
taught them the red dye process. Yeah. Reminded them of the red dye process.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was there, they were very proud to tell me that these are all natural dyes. They were very,
Yeah.
they were very obstinate. Like these are natural dyes. Yeah. So this is the. Let's talk about this one.
So here we're now into Timor,
This color is
indigo.
indigo. Now, when it's non-COVID, this is where you have your indigo workshops. Yes. In Petulant, yeah.
So we do the, you mean here?
Or dye in Petulant,
Yes.
a dyeing workshop. Yeah.
We have next door, we're doing commercial dye work.
Okay.
We're doing, we're dyeing for commercial clients. Often it's like internal, we're dyeing for our own gallery.
I see.
But yes, indigo and other things. We can't do this ikat work.
No.
This is way complex. This is
Yes.
where we got to rely on traditional knowledge and go out and
Yeah,
work
yeah.
with traditional weavers for.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you go to Timor, one of the things that we're looking to do is to extend the season in which they can do their indigo work.
Okay.
So the plant grows during the rainy season. You harvest it from February to April. You make up your dye pots. When those are exhausted, you've got no indigo left for the rest of the year. So typically a dyer's workshop has like a dozen dye pots in it. And they keep replenishing the ones they're using from those the dye that they've made.
Correct.
What we're doing with some farmers in Timor and in Flores is getting them to cultivate indigo, having them make the dye, and then selling that dye to weavers on their islands or on other islands, so that those weavers can extend their work season. So they can make more, that the textiles that they make at the end of the season, one of the problems is, you get to the end of the year, October, November,
Right.
and they've done all of this incredible ikat work, and they're dyeing in a very weak indigo vat, and it's not blue, it's kind of grey. Not so appealing. And you think, you've put so much work into that.
And it's just at the end and it's
such
running
a
out.
shame.
Yeah.
It's such a shame. So if we can supply them with more of the dye paste that they can recharge their indigo vats, they can get good quality throughout the whole year.
And so this also creates a natural dye business for the people that can grow the plants
Exactly.
and make the dye.
Yes.
That's so good. Yeah.
So like, keep it local, keep it circular.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
yeah.
Oh, we know this island will need
Yeah.
15 liters of, or this village will need,
Yeah.
so they can begin to project their sales and understand where's going to go where.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, for
good.
years we've been trying to get the weavers' families to do
Right.
the dye plant cultivation. And it was like pushing a rock uphill.
Yeah.
Their work, where they're making their money is doing the textiles,
Right.
not in the farming.
Right.
We've got to find communities nearby
Right. That aren't weavers.
who aren't weavers. And
they're
this
good
is what traditionally
farmers.
happens,
Yeah.
is some communities are weaving communities, some communities aren't.
Yeah.
Especially the differential will be low to high.
Uh-huh.
Coastal communities tend to be more weaving. Inland communities tend to be less weaving, like on Flores particularly.
Is this because of the trade through the water, like with the boats in the past, maybe?
Not really. One of the issues is the higher you go, the more humid it is.
The more difficult it is.
The more difficult. If this was getting really humid while you were weaving it,
Yeah.
the yarn would stretch,
Yeah.
and the pattern would not stay sharp.
Yeah.
So it's a quality issue.
Yeah, and you begin to
ultimately.
sweat on the fabric and the cotton stickens to your face, yeah?
Ah.
Many things.
So that's there's a technical side of it, and it's been enshrined in a cultural thing. There are taboos against weaving in, communities. Once you get above 700 or 1,000 meters, it's like, oh, we don't weave up here. We trade for our textiles with those people down there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is from Timor, huh?
Timor.
Where's
yes.
this one from?
Sumba.
Zumba.
So now we're
Let me take this one.
sure. Now we're to an area. This is a gorgeous big piece. Again, I'll only open half of it so we can actually talk from it.
Wow, look at
Look
this,
at that.
huh?
We just got this. This just came in this week. We still got the tag on it. This is our tag. So every piece we give an individual item code to,
Okay.
because when you get to buy a piece, you end up with
The story, yeah?
the tag,
Yeah.
and the tag has the name of
The weaver.
the weaver, where it's from.
That's so good.
Has a little bit of the story of the cloth. But in order to come up with this tag, we have to sort of keep the chain of custody. You have to keep a database
Yeah.
that will print out that tag.
Yeah.
So every item has its own item code, which is what this piece of paper is. This hasn't been through the process yet. It only just arrived. I heard Jean and the team oohing and ahhing over it yesterday when they got it out of the shipment.
It's quite beautiful.
So dragons. No. Deer.
Deer?
He's a deer.
Oh, yeah.
He says he thinks, looking at it upside
Oh, yeah,
down.
look. Deer with crowns.
Yeah.
Princess,
So a
king
textile-
deers.
Well, exactly. This would be a textile worn by someone very high in the aristocracy.
Okay.
The ridiculous thing to try during the e-cut process is to keep a large area white.
I would guess, yeah.
You can see through here, the beginning here, the color has leaked through the white
Right.
areas.
Right.
And this part of the yarn up here would have been held out and never put into the dye vat, which is why this stays clean.
Right.
But it's really difficult to keep large areas white with the e-cut process. So this is showing off. And so a person, because it's
Good on
technically
them.
difficult,
Yeah.
it becomes a high value textile
I get
and
it.
is worn by someone with a high status.
Right.
But it's beautiful. Look, it's two pieces sewn together in the middle, and yet it matches all the way through. So
yeah.
they've woven two textiles
Right.
separately,
But identical.
but identical. Now,
Mirror image.
why is that? They were dyed together, but the weaver, as she beats the cloth
Right.
over the length of this, which is a couple of meters, if you don't beat exactly evenly, consistently, you're going to end up with one piece a different length than the other.
Yeah.
If you beat it harder, the cloth gets shorter.
Yeah. It compacts it.
Yeah. So you find in some places where they've had to fiddle it at the end, and you get sort of a ruck at the end where they've had to sew them together and match it up. This is flat all the way through. Gorgeous piece of work.
Yeah, it is. I wondered, I just while you're explaining it, I wonder if they didn't have two looms set up next
No.
to each, no?
No, but that still wouldn't help.
Yeah. No.
No.
No, because if it's two different people.
Two different people, you'll definitely get a different hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got to be the same person.
Years ago, I was in Medina in Myanmar, and they have looms with two women on it, like big Japanese ones from pre-World War.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful things. Fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about let's move to like current events. Yeah, as not so enlightening they are, but I have been able in my business at Usada to shift into a more cafe and work with the staff to kind of retrofit and work less hours and keep it going so there's jobs. Yeah. You have done the same thing. You've gone online. Yeah. Your gallery
online.
is closed until who knows
We
when.
just reopened this week.
You did?
Yeah,
I'm going
so the
to visit.
physical gallery is now open. On Jalan Kajeng, we're open again.
Brilliant. That's great news.
Yeah. So all the staff there, everyone's been vaccinated.
Vaccinated, yeah.
Most of us have had COVID as well, on top of the vaccination. So we figured that
Triple immune.
we're pretty clear.
Yeah. But how is the online going? Is it helping? I mean,
It's been what's kept us alive
Okay.
for the last year and a half.
Okay.
It started very sort of rough and ready. We've tried several times to go online, sales online, and the issue has always been the cost of shipping. This time, DHL offered us, off the bat, because they had no business, an e-commerce rate for our shipping. And so that's what made this possible.
Wow.
So we have to keep a minimum number of shipments going to keep
Right.
that going. But that was the catalyst. And so we started, the website has gone through like 3 or 4 iterations as we sort of like rebuilt it as we go along to get to the e-commerce solution that we now have. And yeah, that's what's keeping us alive. And it's, the moment, August, September, the online buying season seems to be the completely opposite of the tourist season. August was our high point here.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
People are on holiday. They're not buying things online. So hopefully when we get everything back, these two will fill each other in.
Yeah.
The physical season will be the low season online, and the low season for tourism will be the high season online. So we're hoping that we'll come out of this stronger.
Yeah. As the Western holiday season approaches,
Yes.
I think things will improve for you. Yeah.
I hope so, yeah.
The way it works in America is after Fashion Week. This is when it starts to the energy of buying starts to come up. And I have a few friends from Indonesia that actually flew back for that. Anyway, William, I'm happy to have sat with you, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you about and learn. Yeah,
it's great to talk to you.
I'm very. It's encouraging that your retail store is open on Kajang. I'm going to go there and have a visit, and we will continue to support each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if anyone's interested in textiles, threadsoflife.com, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. In the traditional way. Om Shanti 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 Om.